Hey, so good morning, everyone. Welcome to the InsightHub benchmarking webinar. Thanks for taking the time to join us today. My name's Josh. I'm the product manager for InsightHub, and later on in the call, I'll be joined by John Kelly, the deputy MD for Wood for Trees.
Sorry, Josh, interrupt. Just to say hi quickly, and yeah, still a few people joining, but let's crack on and get started. So go ahead, Josh.
Cool. Yeah. So I know a lot of you are already familiar with InsightHub as a platform, but I'm just going to do a quick 5-minute run through, a little bit of an overview to give some context to what John's going to talk about with benchmarking. And at the end of the call, we're hoping to do a quick Q&A session. So if you do have any questions as we run through it all, feel free to submit them to the questions panel, and we'll try and get through as many of them as we can. So let's get going. What do we do at Wood for Trees? We help make things happen through data analytics, insight, and systems. We collaborate with some of the world's best-known charities and not-for-profit organizations to improve fundraising efficiency and performance. And specifically with InsightHub, at a very high level, we take data from your CRM systems, either through extraction or file uploads. We run this data through a series of transformations to categorize and aggregate it into our core charity data model. And then the good bit, we extract valuable insights from this transformed data and render them to you via an online portal. And this enables you to share these insights across your whole organization at any time. Why did we build InsightHub? There are a few challenges that we faced with our previous way of delivering insight. The first one being standardization. Bespoke customer implementations led to non-standardized views of data, but InsightHub allows us to standardize reports and data load processes, which help facilitate better comparison, which is really useful for the benchmarking. The next challenge we faced was deployment. Because the reports used to be installed to customers' machines or clients' machines locally, it was quite hard to roll out updates. You need to go on site effectively. What hosting the reports online allows us to do is to provide continuous delivery of updates, and that's to all clients as well at the same time. We had security challenges. In the independent sensitive data silo ruled out aggregating client data for benchmarks. Basically, the way that we used to host data, we just couldn't safely and securely aggregate it. The new approach allows us to aggregate anonymized data from multiple sources, which, again, crucial for the benchmarking. And sharing, because the reports were stored on local machines, it limited access across teams and departments. Whereas now we're hosting them online, any authorized viewer with an internet connection can see the reports at any time. And now with InsightHub launched to the charity market, we've got the ability to quickly deliver industry-leading reports, and we've grouped these reports into 4 bundles. There's the overview bundle, which is a top-level view of your supporter base with the ability to drill down into detailed analysis of your customer and income trends. There's the supporter engagement bundle, which will allow you to gain a deeper understanding of your supporter activity in relation to engagement, retention, and cross-sell. The value bundle, which helps you understand how supporter value is spread across your organization and specifically who your key donors are. And then finally, the campaign bundle, which will allow you to closely monitor the performance of your campaign and channel activity. And now I'm going to hand over to John to take you through the benchmarking reports.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks for that, and welcome again to everybody. Thanks for joining this morning. Looks like we've got sort of most people here, and I'm really excited to be able to show you this today. I think probably many of you have seen the development of InsightHub that Josh has just taken you through, but really today is about the benchmarking element that we are now able to add. It's something, you know, we've obviously been asked a lot about over the last 13 years it is now, and you know, we've been able to provide benchmarks anecdotally to our clients on what's performing well and what's not through the various insight projects that we run. This is the first time we've really been able to collate that all together into one place and to make that available to you guys directly. Which is fantastic, and that all comes down to the standardization and categorization of that data through the core charity data model, or the CCDM, into a standard taxonomy with consolidated categorizations and meanings applied to the data. We hope that that gets over a lot of the pitfalls that come with a lot of benchmarking projects, and I recently wrote a blog about this. You know, one of the key things is are you comparing like for like by taking your raw data from your CRM and categorizing that in a standard way? We certainly overcome a lot of those issues. It isn't perfect. I think, you know, one of the other big pitfalls of benchmarking is you've got to contextualize it. Now bringing these reports together don't provide you the full context, and that's something that you've still got to apply. And I'll talk a little bit about that as we go through the reports. But it certainly gives you, we hope, some great views on how you're performing on key performance indicators against the rest of the sector. So I'll move into the demo, and hopefully up on screen here you can see this is the key interface to InsightHub when you log in. Those of you that are already using it will be familiar with the list of the various reports that Josh has just gone through in terms of what we're currently delivering, using your own data, giving you detailed access onto the performance across your program. The benchmarking now is the new tab added at the top here, and this really at the moment focuses around the overview, the supported trends and the income trends. So what I'm going to show you today is benchmarking across those elements of InsightHub. As Josh has pointed out, one of the benefits of this is that we can continually update, improve and enhance it. So this really is a sort of living, breathing beast, and we will continue to release further benchmarking to the market as we get more people on board, and we will start to release, you know, LTV, regular giving attrition, and etc. through that. So if I click onto benchmarking, and I'll take you into the first screen, and just bear me a second while it loads. Typically with a demo, it's now going to take a little bit of time to load, and I should have probably preloaded that while I was rambling on. I'm not sure what's happened here. Click a refresh and try. Okay, there we go. Sorry. Slight hitch as ever. We're trying to demo something live, but now you see the report loading, and it takes me straight into the recruitment benchmark. If I click on the navigation button down here, what that will show me is the list of different benchmark reports that we've got in here so far, and this is what I'm going to talk you through this morning. The first few, as I say, they're all based around the overview, and then we drill into a little bit of detail around the supported trends and income trends. All the reports are laid out in a fairly similar fashion. So what you will see is your charity performance on the left here, and then you will see an aggregation of all the charities within the benchmark on the right, so you can see a direct comparison to how you're performing. At the top here, we have that top level view sort of overlaid on top of each other, so you can very quickly and easily see the trend here, and I can see that my charity is performing slightly better than the sector as a whole at the moment. And in this view, I can see that broken down by different products. Take that off for the minute. Well, at the moment, the benchmark is against all the other charities in the benchmark. As we get more and more people on board, we will also be offering the ability to drill down into sort of different sectors, different causes, different sizes of charities, etc. So you can really start to think about comparing like for like. Right, so the other thing I thought I'd show you before I go on a little bit further is the help button. Any point that you are through the reports, you can click on this. You'll see the question marks pop up, and by hovering over them, I hope, yeah, there we go, you get a contextualized description of what the chart is showing you and what it's intended to be used for. So that's available throughout the reports. The other thing, if I take the navigation button away, that is standard across the view, is the filter panel on the left, which enables you to drill down into the report that you're seeing through different aspects. In this case, I'm seeing product and channel. So I'm going to take you through a bit of a story that I prepared related to my fictitious charity here, your charity. This is dummy data that's been set up, but the benchmark data in here is actually real data from the charities that we've got in so far. I'm actually going to go and start with the income benchmark. So if I click on there, wait for that to load, and you'll see, as I said, a very similar view to the recruitment view. In this case, I'm looking at overall income year on year. Take the benchmark away, I can look, see my filter panel. So what I can see here is my performance over the last 5 years has been growing, which is great. 2020, obviously we're only halfway through, so that's you know, not showing growth as yet, but there are good signs. And what I can see from the trends at the top is that my growth rate is actually outperforming the sector as a whole. Which is great news, and actually my performance so far in 2020 looks to be definitely above the sector as a whole. Those of you that have joined these webinars before will know that the charity, the sample charity that we use does seem to be performing very well, so it's always a good news story. Right, so what I then want to really understand is what's driving that income, why, you know, I'm performing well, what's helping me drive that. So I can see the income driven, broken down by product below here, and I can immediately see what's making up large chunks of my income. So in the blue here, we've got gaming, the light blue here, we've got high value giving, and in the sort of purple, regular giving. And in the orange is actually the one that I'm going to focus on, which is the one-off donations. Before I switch to that, I just want to, you know, note a little bit on the gaming there. I can really see that is producing a lot of the increase in value, and certainly if I compare that across to the sector, it looks to be performing well. If I'm particularly interested in gaming, I can go to the product filter, click on my gaming selector, and that will filter down so I can see a direct comparison. And again, that trend line shows me that yes, I am growing gaming. The benchmark as a whole is growing gaming, but I'm growing it quicker than the rest of the sector. Similar with high value giving, that was the other one that I could see from the previous screen that has a real boost. And again, I can really focus in and show that I did something in 2018 with my high value giving team that clearly worked and enabled us to boost our growth in high value giving up above the benchmark. As I said, the situation I'm going to focus on here is one-off donations. I think particularly interesting at this time. We've seen, you know, some interesting stories out there about one-off donations, particularly with more traditional sort of channels of recruitment and fundraising, such as direct mail, sort of really working well. So let's take a look at that. What I see here is, you know, as we might expect, and we know from the sector trends that the one-off donations as a whole are sort of on a slight decline. But for my charity, actually, we're holding up quite well, and 2020 in particular looks to be performing very well. So what's driving that? Let me now switch on to the recruitment benchmark, and I can then look to see how I'm recruiting these people, what's enabling me to perform so well with my one-off donations. So if I take a look at recruitment overall, I can see that again, I'm performing pretty well across everything. But if I go onto my filters, drill into those one-off donations, I want to see what my recruitment picture looks like for that. Here I see, although sort of 2017 didn't seem to be a great year for my charity, do seem to have turned that round a little bit, slowed the decline, and actually even slowing a slight growth in 2020 compared to the rest of the sector, which is still in decline. So that I've been focusing on products so far. What I can also do here is start to drill in and understand what channels is driving that. So if I click on the icon here, I can break down my one-off donation recruitment by the channels that are driving that. And I can see here 2 main channels. At the bottom here, we've got digital. In the blue, we've got direct mail. The orange is other, essentially sort of other uncategorized data, and there's always going to be a proportion of that. It looks similar, I guess, for my charity to what it is for the rest of the sector, which is good. But let's have a look at those 2 key channels. You know, obviously I can see from the bottom here that there's real digital growth, whereas the sector as a whole is fairly flat. Again, I can use the filter to drill into that, select on my digital channel, and that will filter in, and I can really, you know, clearly see that growth. I'm clearly doing something well on my digital channels compared to everybody else. But DM is also a big driver, so I also kind of want to look at that and see how I'm performing there. And there we see a real stark decline in the use of direct mail for recruitment purposes across the sector. And I'm kind of sort of largely following that decline. So, you know, it's not unusual, I guess. So that tells me a little bit about how I'm performing. What I kind of want to now do is understand a little bit more about those one-off donors, and particularly the digital recruits, so I can see, you know, what that can tell me, how I can use that, how does that compare against the rest of the sector. So if I click back to the navigation pane, I see a lot of crosses. Just let me refresh that a second. If I can bring those reports back for me. So back onto that navigation pane, I can see the next benchmark reports which I've got here, the contactability, profiles and location, which I'll now focus on and to find out a little bit about those one-off donors, as I said. So first thing I might want to know is, you know, if I'm doing well on recruitment of these donors, what's my contactability like? Can I communicate with them? Will I be able to take them on a journey, engage them, and drive future value out of them? So contactability, what I see is my charity compared against the benchmark. This is at an overall level. So I can see here actually, you know, across channels like email, phone, and SMS, I'm performing very well against the sector, so able to contact more of my donors. Mail, I'm slightly down on. But as I said, what I'm interested in is those one-off donors. So let's go to the filters. Let's find my one-off donor product and filter into there. And I see kind of a similar picture here. Again, email, phone to a degree, and SMS, I'm doing very well at being able to contact those donors compared to the rest of the sector. Obviously, it could be better, but at least I know where I am compared to everybody else. And again, mail is slightly down. Let's take the channel filter and drill directly into that. Actually, what I'm going to do, rather than drill into the filter, I'm going to show you, rather than clicking on that one, what I can do here is actually change the chart at the bottom and show my channels here, so I can actually use this chart to actually drill in. I can see the volume of digital recruits I'm getting, and I can drill in by clicking on the chart, and that enables me to look at my digital one-off recruits. And here I see a very good picture in terms of email, phone, and SMS to a degree. You know, being able to contact almost 2/3 of that file, which is great. Mail, it's slightly worse than the overall file, so that might be something I want to think about. It's 46% compared to 65% for the sector. Should I be trying to capture more addresses and more ability to contact these people? You could argue these are digital recruits. It might not be necessary, and it also could be part of the reason that I'm performing well, in that I'm actually not trying to capture that address information at point of sign up. So I guess that that's my point earlier, from where contextualizing this and understanding your own program, what you're trying to do, to really understand whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, something that you should be trying to change. So further into the other reports, I can start to profile these donors. So if I click on there, I can see that I've now got a sort of fairly standard demographic breakdown of my donors. At the bottom here, I've got age band and gender, which we take from the database. At the top here, we apply our Sonar demographic categorization, which, for those of you who aren't familiar with, it's very similar to Acorn and Mosaic in that it's a census-based classification of the UK population based on postcode. So it tells you a little bit about what type of donors that you've got, and we're able to apply this to your CRM as data as we load it into InsightHub. It enables you to see the life stage of your donors, also sort of broadly the wealth of your donors. So what I can see here again on my overall file is that I'm slightly leaning towards, well, the profile of the sector as a whole is very skewed towards the more mature end of the market and the wealthier end, as I'm sure we all know and understand. But my charity in particular here does really lean into the sort of mature charities, less so around empty nesters, but also into the affluent portions of the population. If I look at the age breakdown here, I see a slightly different profile in the age seems to be more sort of younger dominated, but note here that this is only based on about a quarter of the file where we're actually applying age. And the other thing I can see here, typical sector profile of being very female dominated. My charity in itself is also female dominated, but a lot more likely to have males giving to the charity. Again, if I filter in and start to look at that sort of audience that I've been highlighting through this in terms of my one-off donors, I see a kind of fairly similar profile, that leading towards the latter life stages and the more affluent proportions, similar sort of female-male skew. The age is showing more related to the Sonar life stage above, but we see here there's very little proportion of age known. So I then want to drill into channel. So I'm actually going to use here, we've got a little bit of a bug in it. So rather than digital, I'm going to, we're putting through website, which is essentially the equivalent at the moment. And that shows me a slightly different profile in that it's certainly not as skewed towards the latter life stages. Age profile backs that up again, although as ever, caution on the proportion, slightly less affluent, and more towards the struggling region. So I guess a little bit of caution on that. You know, I'm performing well, I'm recruiting well from this, using this channel and this product, but maybe I want to be a little bit wary about the profile of those and make sure that I am driving future value and engagement from them. And certainly here, you know, a male bias as well coming into that, almost the same proportion as females on the file. Comparing again against the sector as a whole, which is fairly similar to sort of what we saw across the file. Finally, from a profile perspective, we've got some maps. Everybody loves a map, I'm told, so here we go. So as I load this, what you're able to see here is your charity profile across the UK, broken down by postal areas. So you can see your donors on the left here, the benchmark where donors are spread across the sector, and then an index of those. So where you're particularly in dark green, where you're particularly sort of getting more donors. So we can see here that although down in whatever area this is, Surrey, Sussex, around there, whatever, there's a lot of donors. Actually, if you look at the index, I'm a lot more skewed towards Wales, Northern Ireland, and to some degree Scotland and other northern areas. So let's go into my filters and again into my one-off donor group. Find them. There we go. And drill into them. I see a kind of fairly similar picture, although actually you can see more dark green appearing here, really starting to skew towards Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. And then let's look at those digital or website donors. So if I come onto that. A slightly different picture, and the Wales pales out a little bit, and it really skews into Scotland. So I can kind of understand where these donors are coming from now. I know a little bit more about them, so I can talk to my digital team, or if I'm part of the digital team, sort of understand that, think about, you know, what I might do to try and diversify, or, you know, if I'm happy with that profile, how do I expand and increase that profile and continue the boost in income and supporters that I'm getting through that channel. So final point I want to cover is the drilling into the supporter trends and income trends, which is now narrowing more into sort of our performance over the last year or so, and I guess really seeing how this build up is affecting our current performance, particularly with a bit of a light onto the coronavirus pandemic, but also onto, you know, that thought as, is this audience performing well? Is it going to be helping to drive me value in the future? That will really come from looking at sort of lifetime value metrics and benchmarks, but at the moment I can start to get a view of this from the reports here. So I'm going to start with the income trends and drill into here, and what this is going to show me is my performance this year on income against last year's performance. So as ever, when I first come in, I'm looking at the file as a whole, and I can actually see, you know, kind of as we saw in the initial income benchmark, that I'm really performing well this year. So year to date, compared to where I was last year, I'm actually above where I was, 130% of the income last year, whereas the sector is down, as I think we kind of know and understand anecdotally against what's going on across the sector. So, you know, I'm actually able and being shown to sort of buck that trend a little bit. I can look at the full period, so for the year as a whole, understand that. I can see there that I'm 59% towards my target for this year, whereas the benchmark is 32% towards the target. What I can also see here, the two things that are really driving that performance from my sort of indicators in the green bars here are high value giving, as we saw earlier, but also the one-off donations that I've been highlighting. So that really is helping to drive my performance in the current year. And if I drill again into that using my filters, I can really highlight and show that in that actually year to date, I'm pretty much double where I was last year. Interestingly here, you know, as I was saying earlier, from the one-off donation perspective, the benchmark as a whole is actually also above where they were last year. So, you know, it is one of the products, I guess, largely driven by the channels that are used for it, that is holding up in the pandemic, you know, as we know, as opposed to some of the products and channels that are more directly hit, such as face-to-face and events. But that really shows me sort of where I am performing on my one-off donors at the moment. And if I click again into these specific channels that I'm using, and I look at my, not direct dialogue, I'd imagine that I'm going to get pretty much nothing on that. Yes, that's a good sense check. If I look at my digital recruits, there I can see, you know, I'm almost 4 times where I was last year. Again, the sector as a whole is close on double, so doing well, but I'm really outperforming and outstripping that, which is a great performance. But let's not forget direct mail. It still has a place, and it still, you know, has been shown to be sort of working well. And I guess through looking at that, I can see that, you know, my direct mail performance is holding up. It's not quite as good as it was at this point last year, but it's not doing badly under the circumstances. Okay, on to my final report, which is supporter trends. So again, drilling in a little bit more to what's going on with supporters at the moment, taking a recruitment view, but also taking an attrition view. So how many supporters am I losing? And those that know me that will know this is one of my favorite charts, the green line showing the people that we're bringing into the charity, the red line showing the people that are lapsing, and the grey bars showing what that means to our overall active file size. So I can see here a similar picture for my charity as to the benchmark as a whole, in that we showed growth, we're showing growth up to 2018, and that's shown a slight decline since then. However, you know, the decline that I'm showing, as I think has been highlighted in a lot of the other things that I've been showing you, is slightly lower, and that's explicitly shown up here, that in the last year my file has dropped by 7% compared to the sector whole of 16%. What I'm able to do then again, as ever, is highlight the audience or the supporters that I'm wanting to look at. And here actually we see a slightly a different picture, that my decline in one-off donors has been sort of quite sharp, and a little bit sharper than the sector as a whole. If you remember back initially, I showed you that recruitment was quite low in 2017 compared to the sector, and we can see that again here. So that has affected the file. But actually that's turning round now, and I'm able to show that that's actually climbing and even into a slight growth. The other thing we can do here is use this slider to sort of really drill in and focus in on the last year or the last 2 years, so 2019, 2020. I can split that down by quarter, so I can see actually really where that growth is starting to come from, and I am starting to turn the file around. So I think what that shows me is the digital performance, well, the performance on my one-off donors, particularly with that digital recruitment, is really starting to sort of work and bear fruition in terms of helping me build my supporter file, but also, in terms of that short-term income and ensuring that I'm keeping my income targets as high as possible for the current year. Well, I hope you've all followed that. That's kind of where I want to leave it, and we can hand back now to Q&A. I can see some people I think have started to ask questions. I haven't had a chance yet to look at them, but let's move on to that. Just last point is I hope that's shown you. I haven't been able to show you all the functionality of the reports. You'll have noticed there were lots of other filters as I went through, but hopefully it gives you an idea of the power of what these benchmarks can show you in terms of monitoring your performance, understanding how that stacks up against the sector as a whole, knowing where you're strong, knowing where you're weak, and making decisions, helping you make those decisions as to how to sort of change your programs to perform better. Thank you very much. So we can take a look at the questions. Josh, I don't know if you want to sort of come back in here and we can sort of run through these.
We've got a question about filtering the benchmarks against certain types of charities. So that's definitely something that's on the roadmap to do. As part of the first cut, you will just see an aggregation of all the charities on the benchmark, but going forward, we definitely want to be able to filter by sector.
Yeah, as I think I sort of pointed out earlier on, I guess that's connected also to the question from Helen in terms of charities signed up. So at the moment we've got 5 charities in the benchmark. We are talking to a few others about bringing them in, and we hope off the back of this we can get a few more people interested. They represent a range of causes. I can't at the moment tell you exactly who they are, but we're hoping to release that shortly. We want this to be as open as possible so that everybody knows who's in here, who they're benchmarking against, without obviously being able to see the individual performance of those charities. But certainly there's a range in there at the moment, and we'll be looking to increase that. It's one of those chicken and egg things. We wanted to show people the power of what this can do, but certainly as we get more people on, it will become more and more powerful for you as the end users.
Mm-hmm. And then off the back of that, there's the obvious question in that how much does it cost? I'm happy to answer that one, John. So the price is split into 2 payments. There's a one-off data ingestion fee, which will get you on the platform, and then there's a yearly license to main access to all of the reports. Both of those fees are dependent on the amount of records that you want to load into the system. As I showed at the start of the presentation, they're based on the bundles, and they start from £4,000 a year if you just want access to the benchmarking reports themselves, or £8,000 a year if you want access to the full reports as well as the benchmarks. And I think off the back of that, it's worth saying that we've got an offer on until the end of 2020 where we're going to give you the license for the overview bundle and the overview benchmark bundle for free if you just pay the ingestion fee. So it's a good way to get on board for the platform at a lower price.
Okay, I can see Andrew's asked another similar question about sort of what the benchmark is based on, and is it just the charities that share their data with Wood for Trees? I kind of answered that question already, but just to sort of further that point, yes, it is. You know, the whole part of this point of this benchmark is that it is based on real data that comes from your CRM through that CCDM process that we described earlier, enabling us to, we will be refreshing this on a monthly basis, so you'll be able to see real-time benchmarks against real data. So that does mean that, you know, we have to have your data in through the ingestion process that Josh has described, but we're hoping to get, you know, a lot more people on board to do that.
Mm-hmm. And I think that partially covers another question that's just been asked in, do you have to pay each time we load the data in? So the license fee that you pay per year covers a monthly ingestion of data. We do have an option to ingest weekly, but no, effectively the license fee will cover 12 ingestions throughout the year of that data. There's the question in how do you actually get your data into the CCDM and into InsightHub? Do you have to answer that one, John?
Yes, so that's through the CCDM process of basically we take either a regular backup of your database, or if we can, if it's a cloud-based database, we're able to link in directly and pull that data directly through it. We then transform and aggregate that data through our standard processes. As you can imagine, we've got this process working on a lot of the standard CRMs that you guys out there will be using. So the traditional ones of Razor's Edge and Care, but also we're working on Salesforce and Dynamics integrations as well. So we can pull data from pretty much any CRM, and that will be, you know, part of the process to get your data in.
Mm-hmm. And there's another question asking whether the aggregated data layer behind for their data will be available to use in other platforms. So that's kind of the point of loading it into the CCDM. Currently, it's just putting out to InsightHub, but in the future, we're hoping to bring in more platforms to feed off that data.
Yeah, so absolutely, it can and will be made available. You know, I think the question mentioned fast stats. A lot of our clients are using fast stats, and we can directly push the same data into fast stats so that you can see that. If you're wanting it elsewhere, then we can also talk about that kind of access as well.
Mm-hmm. There's another question about pricing as well. So as a follow-up to this webinar, we'll send an email out with a little bit more information about the benchmarking, and that'll include some pricing information. Obviously, it varies depending on which bundles and how many records you want to load in. But if you've got any more specific questions, the account managers will be more than happy to answer those for you.
We're coming in thick and fast at the moment, yeah. Trying to keep up with them.
There's the annual license. Sorry, Judd. Yeah, there's one. Does the annual license cover development of further reports if the standard reports raise further questions? So the license will cover you for further developments of the reports you've paid for, not bespoke requirements. Not to say that we won't listen to those requirements and those questions and try to incorporate them into the standard reports. But we also do offer the ability to create bespoke reports and host them within InsightHub, which we've done for a few of our clients if there's more specific questions you need answered.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and we're very open to you know, wanting users to engage and feedback their requirements on this. Obviously, you know, over 13 years of working with charities, we feel that we've got a good view of what people want to see and how they want to see it, but that can always be improved and enhanced. So very open to suggestions as to what you might want to see. So Rowan, I can see is continually asking about axes and scales on the chart. So thanks for that, Rowan. Yeah, the axes on the benchmark are deliberately not shown as it is an aggregation as a whole. So they are different scales, and yes, it does mean that sort of drop-offs will be potentially different volumes, but in terms of a percentage, you know, that remains the same. That's what we're trying to show. Are you growing, increasing, or is your percentage of income that's coming through a certain channel or a certain product relative to the sector as a whole, rather than an absolute benchmark? I hope that helps there.
There's a question about how custom business rules are handled. So obviously we can't get into the specifics of every single business rule, but each instance of InsightHub has a configuration that's bespoke to your organization. So we can set things like currency, transaction year, when you start your financial year, all that kind of stuff can be configured to your implementation of InsightHub.
Yeah, just to clarify on that though, Josh, for the benchmarking aspect, those obviously have to be standardized and consolidated. Otherwise, we're not comparing apples for apples. So what we talk about as an active file will have a consistent definition across the benchmark, and we will, you know, those are open and clear for everybody to see. Where you would like your own reports to look at your own data, then you can bespoke those rules to align with the ways that you report internally, and so that they can be consistent with other information that you're getting. But for the benchmarking, obviously we do have to be consistent across that.
So I think, unless there's any more questions to come in, I think we've gone through most of what's in the feed that I can see.
Just having a flick through a question from Louise regarding what income streams are covered. So does it cover trusts and corporate? Yeah, if we've got that data in the CRM, we are able to bring those income streams into it and enable you to compare and contrast those. And equally then the ability to filter those out and drill in, you know, if you don't want to compare those against, you know, if you're not big on trusts and corporate and you want to take those out of your overall comparisons, you'll have the ability to filter those out.
So yeah, so I think we've got through all the questions there. We'll be following the webinar up with an email that will have a recording of the webinar itself and some more information about benchmarks. But if you do think of any other questions going forward, obviously feel free to get in touch. We're happy to answer, sit down with you and run through in more detail, or give you a private demo of the benchmarking reports and the reports themselves. I guess all that's left to say is thanks for joining. Thanks for giving us an hour of your time this morning. We're really excited to be launching this new set of benchmarking reports, and we hope that you'll find some need for them in your businesses.
Great. I'd just like to reiterate that as well. Yeah, thanks for your time. And as Josh said, happy, you know, any further questions, please follow up with us, and we'll try and answer them as best we can.
Cheers, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good rest of the day.